Well, let's unpack this further now with Libuseng Malephane, who is the Afrobarometer national investigator in Lesotho. Libuseng, very good evening. Thanks so much for speaking to us. Now, amazing studies or huge studies that you've carried out as far as Lesotho is concerned and that election landscape. Just give us a brief narrative of how it's looking at the moment ahead of tomorrow's election.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. As we showed in our report, that as we're heading to the polls, really Basotho are very unhappy with the state of affairs in the country, with democracy as a whole. In fact, the whole polity of the country, they are not happy about it. You could see that they believe that really the country is going in the wrong direction. And the economy, according to them, is not working for them. There are no jobs. Employment and infrastructure are one of the most important problems which they feel have to be addressed, but they don't see them being addressed.
No.
And yes.
No, carry on. I'll let you finish.
Oh, okay. So you find that they really don't think democracy works for them. About 70% of Basothos are not satisfied with the way democracy is working in Lesotho. So much that they would rather see the king come in and take government, be the one who's in charge of the government. They don't anymore believe that elections is the way to have to elect leaders through elections. They think that other means should be found rather than elections.
Well, for all intents and purposes, that's not going to change. Well, certainly not before tomorrow.
Of course not.
According to the study, half the respondents say they will probably or definitely vote, and only 39% believe that the election will be free and fair. Now, we listened to a couple of voxies where the one young man said he is looking for change, and that is what he's voting for. The young lady, on the other hand, said, well, you know what, I'm not going to vote. It makes absolutely no difference. There's been voter apathy over the last few elections. In fact, those numbers have continued to come down. Is this what we can expect in tomorrow's election?
Yeah. So the other person you just spoke to highlighted the fact that, for instance, would expect the new kid on the block, the RFP, maybe to change the landscape somewhat. But as he said, most of the people who are very excited about it are the youth. And in this survey which we did, 40% of the youth were saying they would probably not vote. But we are hoping that maybe RFP would have convinced them to go and register and vote.
Well,
that's what we found in our survey as well.
Well, again, looking at your survey, let's take a look at what the Basotho are looking for come to tomorrow's election. So almost 50% say infrastructure and roads is something that is key on their agenda. 47% speak about unemployment. Crime, security, water supply, electricity, and corruption are things that they would like to be taken care of. Now, looking at that plethora of parties, I think almost 6 dozen political parties that will be participating in tomorrow's parliamentary elections, taking a look at those candidates and potentially the manifestos that they've shared over the last few weeks, in your mind, who do you think will likely fit the bill and correct these challenges?
Well, I don't know, because a lot of them have been there in government before. If we look at the front runners, they have been there. They have not addressed these issues. So really, the two new ones who probably would expect something different will be VAP and maybe RFP. But the question is, at the moment, the economy is in such shambles. I don't know if anybody who comes in will be able to effect those changes, because the coalition governments, which have been changing after 1 year or 2 years every time, have really cost the country. So there haven't been much capital projects being taken on board because of this instability brought about by this coalition government. And it is a pity that the reforms were not passed, which should have been passed as we go into the election, which were supposed to address some of these problems.
So I suppose it's almost too difficult to tell if those reforms will be passed at post-election. But it then begs the question, are we likely to see a free and fair election? Would be the first question. And the second question is, do we have enough observers from the African Union or from SADC, and certainly and other bodies that would monitor elections present in Lesotho at the moment?
Well, I think since 2012, I think we really have had free and fair elections in Lesotho, which are very difficult to cheat. So even though the surveys say 37% don't expect it to be free and fair, I would think it's because if they don't trust, if they didn't trust the management body, the IEC, and they believed the IEC was not well prepared, I think that is what brought about that perception that maybe it would not be free and fair. But the way I've seen the elections in Lesotho being run, I don't expect these ones not to be free and fair.
So parliamentary elections are tomorrow. When can we expect to see a new Prime Minister of Lesotho? All things being equal.
Usually next week sometime, we'll know which way the wind is blowing. Early next week.
Okay, so once that wind has blown, as you've suggested, what would you say would be the 100-day plan for the incumbent Prime Minister? What are those key issues that he or she needs to take care of immediately?
Really, it is important to have a plan in place on tackling the issue of unemployment, because it's a serious concern for everybody. And also, we need to see a government which seems to be in charge. As you read out those problems, you saw at number 3, it was the issue of security. Basotho don't feel safe in their communities. The murder rate, they consider it very high, and they don't see the current government having really addressed that their safety and security at all.
Libuseng, I appreciate your time on Africa today. Thank you for speaking
and corruption as well. That is a big concern.
Well, corruption, and that is where we leave it this evening. That was Libuseng Malephane, who is the Afrobarometer national investigator in Lesotho, and unpacking for us that landscape ahead of tomorrow's election.